You ever wonder how you can develop grit? You know, that thing, that passion, that drive that people you see this very successful people have. And you wonder how you yourself could even fathom something about creating grit to feel that way, to feel the success that they feel, to feel the success in your life, whether that's through relationships, whether that's through business, whether that's through your health, whatever the case is. You always strive to find the grit to be more than what you actually feel you're capable of doing. But we all have this power within. We all have to realize that it's there. Well, for me, myself, there are two things I believe there are actually ways of doing this to actually discover your grit. One of which we have absolutely no control over. Now, coming up in a specific childhood, whatever your upbringing is, that can develop grit. You know, you may have a really rough childhood where you feel like you were on the bottom of the barrel and you were working your way up. Maybe just to prove yourself, to yourself, not to anybody else, but just yourself, that you could do it. To realize that you're not in this box. People may put you inside this box, but that's not where you want to be. That's not where you're comfortable. So you fight to be in the box. That develops grit. Maybe there's a life event that happened. Maybe you went through a divorce. It's another challenge. You have these challenges throughout your life that determine how passionate you are you, how driven are you to get past these life events. These are just challenges to determine if you have what it takes to get through all that. And a lot of us, can play a victim, can assume that we're gonna just put ourselves in that box, and that's who we are for life. Or to actually break yourself out of that box, and don't put yourself in a box. Don't put limitations on yourself. Don't identify yourself as something specific. We're not our material things. Remove the material things and you actually realize that you find your true self. This is where you can find your grit. Your grit. And then this leads into the second thing that I'm talking about, which is actually being able to develop more grit. To realize that all this resistance, right? All this resistance in the back of your mind is this voice that is telling you you're not good enough, that you identify yourself as this, that these are all lies. Whenever you feel that resistance about not doing something, that's your calling to build grit. That's your calling to say, I don't care what that voice in the back of my head is saying. I don't care if it's saying that all these people are going to judge me for going out and doing something that's not the norm. You have to challenge that. You have to be willing to go against that resistance, go against that voice, and push yourself beyond that. And every time you see that resistance, that's the calling. That's your cue. That's when you need to move forward. That's where you're going to develop the grit. It's by getting out of that comfort of what you're familiar with. And yes, this means seeking out those challenges, not being yourself anymore, growing out of that shell. It's always about growing into developing yourself and being a greater you. Because we put ourselves in this box and that we can't come out of the box, when in fact you can. You are putting limitations on yourself. You are not allowing yourself to go outside that box. You're more worried about what the next person says, but to develop the grit. Maybe you are lucky. Maybe you are the few that can actually, have grown up with some grit because life challenged you at an early age and you learned that you had to grow up faster and that you had to actually push yourself, to get the things that you want in life. And sometimes life will continue to challenge you, whether you choose to or not. But it's being able to adapt and to change those changes where you find your grit, or seeking out those challenges that will cause you to develop that grit. Again, find that resistance wherever it is. You go out and you find it. And you take it on and you challenge it, whether that's mentally or physically. This is where you really find your grit. right? If you feel like you don't like being in front of a camera, challenge yourself to do that. And keep doing it, and keep doing it. And you find you start building that grit. Or if there's something physically you feel like you cannot do, like I myself, right? I remember coming out of the military saying I would never run a day in my life again. And I've challenged myself. I'm running, 6, 8, 12 miles now. Why? Because I choose to challenge myself, to build that grit, to really see what I'm made of. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, is to see what you're made of and challenge that and accept that challenge. And whenever that resistance is telling you, this isn't comfortable, I don't like this, that's when you know you're on the right track. That's when you know you're building that grit. That's when you know that, success is just around the corner. You just have to keep challenging yourself, mentally, physically. You can do it. You have what it takes. It's going against that resistance. It's going against that voice, because that voice will always put you down, will always back you into that box, and will leave you there until you decide to venture out, and then it will get louder. But you can silence that voice by going against the resistance of that voice. And that voice will get quieter and quieter and quieter. Then you find you want to challenge yourself more. What more am I capable of? Can I, run a full marathon? Can I run an ultra? Can I, ultimately, go in front of a crowd and speak to, thousands of people? Now that may seem really scary, and you will take small steps. You will slowly build up that grit. But you have to understand, this is where it's at. This is where you're going to build the grit, is by challenging yourself. Yes, sometimes that outside element will come in and force the challenge on you. And that's where you're gonna have to say, I'm not gonna be the victim this time. This time I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna execute, and I'm going to, take on this challenge full force, and I will not let it take me down. I will not be the victim today or tomorrow or the day after that. Today I'm gonna take charge, and I'm gonna accept the challenge and do whatever it takes to overcome that challenge. That's ultimately what grit is. It's not accepting things for what is given to you, but only accepting things on your terms. Once you start accepting things on your terms, you find that you are so much more capable than you ever thought you were. So go out and build your grit. Challenge yourself, body and mind. That's my challenge to you.